Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Escape 9 to 5 show. Alessandro here, as usual, to interview experts and give you all the value you need and all the content you need to grow, to scale, and to become profitable and successful with your business. Today, as you saw from the waiting screen, we're going to talk about mindset and we're going to talk about visibility. I have here a mindset coach. She's the founder of Scorpio. She's many things. I will try to remember all of them. She's an actress. She's a screenwriter. She's a public speaker, podcast host. She's the number one mindset coach in PR. I would like to invite to the stage Jessica Paul. Welcome to the Escape 9 to 5 show, Jessica.
Hi, lovely to be here.
I'm super happy to have this conversation with you because I've been waiting for this interview for a while because I wanted to have an interview about mindset. And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is because we usually talk about techniques and strategies and advice and tips, and we never tackle the foundations. Shift your mindset to get more visibility and to grow. So I'm really excited for this. I want to let everyone watching this that if you have any questions, drop your questions in the chat and I will keep an eye and then I will forward the question to Jessica. So Jessica, for the people who may not know you, let us know how you became a mindset coach and tell us a little more about your journey.
Yeah, so I mean, you pretty much summed me up in that little intro. I suppose I have a lot of strings to my bow, but first and foremost, I'm an actor. I've been an actor for over 10 years, and that's really been my source of income. That's been my bread and butter for all that time. When COVID hit, that's some other ventures, and I'm now the founder of Scorpio, which is a performance coaching service for leaders, for execs, for talent, for people within PR and branding agencies. And essentially, I'm helping people build up that mindset element in order to stand out. Because with the rise of personal brands, also comes that rise of overwhelm for founders and for execs and for people marketing their businesses. And the number one thing that a lot of people are forgetting with the rise of personal brands is that it is coming from you and understanding who you are and being able to lay the foundations for a very solid mindset is 100% part of that. So alongside all that strategy, we've got to be thinking about that too. So that's where this business is born. But for me as an actor, I've spent 10 years building up my own personal brand in that space. I've been lucky enough to work on West End stages, tour the world, work with celebrities. I've had a great time and it's still going. I'm going to LA again this year. And so in that time, I think I've inadvertently learned what it really means to sell yourself as a person. And so watching this shift in the more corporate space with people building these brands, this is what's given me this impetus to go out and sort of teach it to the more corporate environment. And it lends itself really beautifully to it. So I spent a bit of time last year in working in a personal branding agency itself, watching how things worked in an agency. And pre that, I had my own coaching business where I was coaching artists and actors and influencers in the mindset element. So combining all of that together, that's how Scorpio was born.
Nice. I love it. Do you think that there is a difference between building a personal brand for an actress, as you did, and someone who is a business owner or a freelancer or a solopreneur? Do you think that there is something different about the things that you're supposed to do?
There's no difference in the way that the concept of it in general. The difference is, and this goes for anybody in any industry, whatever your industry is, it's about becoming credible within that industry. So, the difference between marketing yourself and building a personal brand as an actor compared to, let's say, someone in the AI space is just that you are the expert in your space. So, you know, being able to add that credibility to what you do and become the most well-known person in that space is what you're aiming to do. In terms of actually building the brand, it's very similar. And there's a lot of things that I've learned as an actor that actually are lending themselves so well to building as a business owner, because there's a lot that we can learn in charisma. There's a lot that we can learn in how to show up in a way that people actually are attracted to. And that doesn't come as naturally to some people. So yeah, in the way that we build our brands, it's the same, but you're just obviously dedicating that to a certain industry.
Right. Well, since you mentioned this, I was thinking it makes sense that you have to be authentic on your content, and it makes sense that you have to show your true self. Do you find, or at least let me rephrase this, is there a way to be authentic with your content and at the same time professional? I mean, definitely with your content, you are impacting your audience and you have to strike a chord and you get to be visible, since we're talking about visibility here. So is there a way to do that, but in a professional way? And there is a wrong way to do that. Let's address first how to do it wrong and what is the right way to be authentic and professional at the same time with your content.
Well, massively. I think, again, it goes for any industry that you're in. I think this word professional is a little confused. I think that people think showing up professionally means you have to show up quite, you know, tightly and like, you know, not show any aspects really of your personality and be very corporate in your approach. But really what people are craving nowadays is authenticity, and it is more of who you truly are as a person. That doesn't mean that you have to shout really loud or, again, not be someone that you actually are, but it just means that those little quirks you get to bring to the table, and that is still professional. It's still you know, what's not professional is if you don't buy into what you're putting out there, if you think it's cringe, if you think it's too much, if you think all of these things about yourself and what you're doing, then it will come across that way. Whereas what you want to be doing when you're building a personal brand is you want to be, I call it your auto filter system, because really what you want to be doing is filtering out the people that are wrong for you and filtering in the people that are right for you. And so there's some people that show up with, you know, like a very dramatic in their approach, and that's just who they are as people, and they're full of energy and vibrance, and it's amazing. Some people that might put people off. And yeah, you do want to be thinking, okay, within your space and your industry, what do people like? But also you've got to be thinking as a person, you know, because there's going to be, again, let's take it to the other extreme. Let's talk about like the AI industry. There's a lot of people, and I've worked with clients that are in AI, and the way that they show up and their approach is a little different to the way an actor would show up. However, they're just showing up as if you're showing up as who you are as a person, whoever in that industry is attracted to that will come to you. So it's really I think there's a lot to make this clearer. I think really we just want to be getting out of our heads. You know, stop thinking so much, stop thinking so strategically, and actually start feeling and like leading with your heart a little bit more. Because when we're so in our heads about how we should be doing something or how we should be approaching, like showing up online or in person, we will trip ourselves up and we will stop being authentic, and people will feel that.
I I really agree with you, especially because you talked about AI, and sometimes we try to please the algorithm instead of we're pleasing our audience, and this is what eventually we have to do, right? We're talking to an audience, and you being an actress, you know that you have to please your audience and you have to make them happy with what they're watching, right? They have to be fulfilled with what they're watching, and with content is exactly the same. And I think that this is the reason why you're really good in what you do, because you've done it first in a complete different environment, and then you move all your knowledge to content creation and to the business world. And I think that is genius. It's really a great switch. Since you mentioned that, I like that you talked about the fact that we have to be authentic. We have to create content that our audience wants to watch, but at the same time, we have to be proud of our content. I don't know if I can use that word. We have to be happy with what we're posting. We are not just posting something because it works, but we have to be proud about our content. So I think that many people fail in this way and they don't know how to do it. So I ask you, how can you create content consistently? Because if someone takes a look at your profile on LinkedIn, they can see that you're really consistent with the content that you're creating, and you show your true self. And this is what people connect with. So how can you stay consistent, stay authentic, and not be and stay motivated as well? Stay motivated with the content that you have to create. How do you make this shift in your mindset to achieve all these things?
Yeah, I you made some really good points there about mentioning these words consistency and authenticity, which are massive buzzwords that go along with personal branding in itself. Um, but actually, just picking up on something you said there about how, I've sort of brought this knowledge of acting over to like LinkedIn, for example. I've only actually been on LinkedIn for about 8 months, and in that time, I've built up a community of over 20,000 people. And the reason I think that I was so successful with building the brand up on LinkedIn is because I came in with such a level of naivety. I came into LinkedIn thinking, oh, it's not really a place for me. I'm a creative. I'm an actor, and this is more of a corporate environment. This is where you go to get a job. And very ironically, it's where I went to get a job, because it was at that stage in my journey in my life where I wanted to learn more. I was in that place, and so I joined LinkedIn specifically to get a job. Now I got the job. I've since quit the job, and now I'm working for myself again. And the reason being is because I was very naive to how people were in their heads in this platform. I just showed up on a platform and I was myself from the get go. And I showed up on the platform and I built a community up from the get go. I wasn't overthinking things. I wasn't, trying to strategically write posts at that point, or draft the perfect thing, or I just went for it and I was myself. And I think that it is truly what authenticity is. It's so thrown around as a buzzword. And to be honest, like it gets quite hard to hear sometimes, because people are like, yeah, people are always giving you the advice of be more authentic. And you're like, but what does that really mean? And really what that means is owning who you are, And I wrote this phrase on a comment this morning. It's not about shouting louder on these platforms or in your brand. It's about owning who you are and believing in yourself harder, and I think that is where the inner work comes in. This is what I do with my clients. Like, this is the element that people forget when building their brand. They get so into the strategy behind it that they forget that actually the first point of call is looking inward, figuring out who you are as a person, owning that, believing in it, actually liking it, and then you can show up and the authenticity is already there. So that's the first point on authenticity. When you talk about consistency, which is another like real buzzword, consistency is what it means to you. You can be consistent in your own routine. That might mean that you're posting every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. consistently, but you're only posting once a week, and people know that that is your day that you show up. People are waiting for you that day because they know that that's the day that you consistently show up. That's your routine. Now, you might not grow your brand as quickly as someone that's posting daily, but if you're consistent with your own routine, that's all that matters. So, as well, not overwhelming yourself with these things. Like, I think a lot of people forget as well, when they're earlier points in their journey, their brand building journey or their business journey, is that the people that you're watching that have got these daily brands going, these daily posts going in their brands, like myself, we have systems and structures in place, or we're delegating. We're someone is actually operating our personal brand. Actually, like, full disclosure, nobody operates my personal brand. It's all me. I'm the one commenting back to absolutely everybody. But some people invest in that. You know, like how I worked in a personal branding agency, and that's what people invested in, and it's necessary. However, on that point, you also don't want to completely delegate things and forget about your own brand. And that's actually, this is moving into a new conversation, but this is actually a point that I sort of became to realize within working within this personal branding agency, which they are so good at what they do. They know their stuff. However, they can only do things up to a certain point if the founder or the exec or whoever they're working with doesn't want to be involved. You can't pass over your personal brand to an agency and expect it to grow. Your personal brand is personal for a reason. So yes, you can delegate to mitigate some of that overwhelm and help with that consistency. But when it comes to growing a strong personal brand and actually being successful with it, it requires you to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I think that many people fall into this trap of being consistent and dropping the quality of their content just because they want to be there everywhere. I saw this many, many times. People who think that they have to post 5, 6, 7 times per week, and they don't care about the quality of their content. They just want to be there, present, because they think that this will make them be visible, or this will make the algorithm make them be visible. What you said here is completely different. It's the opposite. You said, you know what? Find your own balance. Post when you want to post, but be consistent with the role that you gave yourself, and stick with it, because this will educate as well your audience to know when you're going to be online and when they can consume your content. And you said as well that you can go this way, you can post once per week. You won't go as fast as posting, I guess, 5 times per week, but at least this is your rule. You're going to stay consistent with that. And I guess you, Jessica, you can suggest, look, if you can do that once per week and it's comfortable for you, maybe you can try to do 2 times per week or 3 times per week, and you will go faster this way. So this leads us to a question that I'm sure many people watching this have in their mind. Okay, I want to be consistent. I want to stay consistent, but how can I come up with content that is authentic every time I have to post? Because I can talk about my life, but maybe my life is not interesting enough to post 5 times per week. So how do you handle that little problem there? How can you stay consistent even if you don't know what to say too many times per week?
I think the question that you've got to be asking yourself in that scenario is, why don't you think your life is that interesting? Why do you sit there thinking that your life isn't interesting? Where is that coming from? Because yeah, we all lead completely different lives. That's what makes us individuals. But it doesn't mean that anybody's life is any less boring. And we also got to remember that, and I think this really does come down to comparing yourself to other people and other people's brands, because you're looking at other people's brands and you might be thinking, oh well, I haven't spoken on a stage, I've not been on that podcast, I've not got any like massive stats to share in my business and how well it's doing. So you're already comparing yourself, and then you're thinking, well, okay, well, I don't have anything to share. But actually, when you can begin to, and this is one of the main things I tell my clients, is to fall in love with what you're doing and fall in love with your life, fall in love with polarity, fall in love with rejection, fall in love with all of it, right? When you can begin to do that, you begin to see how interesting your life actually is, and how much magic is actually in that you can share with the world through storytelling. When we're in again, when we're so in our heads around how we should be looking or what other people are doing, we will constantly find that our life isn't fulfilling enough. So that's really the element that you want to be leaning into here, is asking yourself that question: why don't you think your life is interesting? And if it comes down to that element of comparing yourself to other people or thinking you should be doing something else, that's where again I can invite you to do that inner work, to figure out how you can actually be owning your life more. That's where the content ideas come from, and it's not a quick fix. And this is again where I'm really trying to pioneer the space within personal branding, to get people away from this strategic thing in their heads to go, okay, well, I'll have to do this, and this is the post structure, and this is what I post on a Wednesday, and this is what I post on a Friday. Forget it. Forget that and look inward first, because that's when these things flow. For me, I've done this work and I continue to do this work, and I've done it for you know properly, going in on my mindset. I've been doing it for nearly 7 years intensely. And so for me, it's very easy to sit here and say, "Oh yeah, just keep a tab open on the notes on your phone and write down little ideas when they pop into your head." That's easy for me to say because I've laid the groundwork of my inner world first for those ideas to flow. Whereas for someone that hasn't done that, it's very difficult for these ideas to come in. And actually, a note on that in itself, with these ideas coming in for content, it really does come down to how much time you're giving yourself to just stop as well. As busy founders and busy business owners, busy execs, I know that you guys don't give yourself a great deal of time to think. And not think, sorry, feel. You don't give yourselves a great deal of time to feel. So you're constantly in your head, you're constantly, getting really good at maybe delegating to people to go and do these things for you. But it's when you can just sit for even 10 minutes, 15 minutes whilst you're having your morning coffee and allow ideas to settle in. That's when the content comes. And I'm telling you, you can write a month's worth of content in an hour when you allow yourself that time to truly understand, firstly, who you are and, what you find exciting about yourself. And secondly, just that time to sit and let them land.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's mostly about comparing yourself with people who are way ahead of you, and that makes us doubt about our possibility and capacity to come up with content that is interesting for your audience. We can take a look at you, Jessica, and we see that you already have a community of 20,000 people, and we can see that every time you post, you get so much engagement. And that makes us think, look, I don't have anything interesting to say. I don't have an audience. I don't have engagement. So why am I doing this? But we forget to remember that you were at the same stage. You said you started 8 months ago. So you were at the same stage. You started like everyone else started. You were consistent. You believe in yourself. You own your content. You were honest with your content for your audience, and eventually you grew this community that you have at the moment. And I think that
100%.
this should be the inspiration for the people watching here. Every one of us, we started in the same way.
It's so true. When I first started on LinkedIn, and like I said, I had that level of naivety, so I was just showing up. It was my ex-boyfriend at the time. He was the only person that was liking my LinkedIn's, and that's because I asked him to. Right? So listen, we've all started from the beginning. Nobody is born out of the womb with a massive personal brand, right? We all start somewhere. But the reason that I grew my brand so big in such a short amount of time is not because of strategy. It's not because I sat there strategizing over it for hours in my head thinking, oh my gosh, how do I do this? It was because of self belief. It was because rather than thinking, how do I do this? I was just thinking, how can I feel this? How can I feel more? How can I feel more excited by what I'm putting out there? How can I feel more, engaged? How can I feel these things rather than what do I have to do? Because it's that energy, right, of desperation that people fall into the trap of when you're building anything, not just a personal, we're obviously talking about personal branding, but when you're building anything or wanting to achieve anything in life, whether that's more money in your bank account or, your dream relationship, whatever it is, you know, we can fall into this trap of becoming desperate, you know, needing these things, thinking this is what I need in my life so badly. I went through this when I went on a journey with my money mindset in general. Like, when I was a struggling actor in London. Like I was not earning anything. I was working these waitressing jobs in London, living in this tiny flat share. And I remember sitting there thinking, I need more money, right? But it was that energy that was repelling the money, because I was showing up in such a way that people could feel it was repelling it. So the same goes for building your brand. If you're showing up feeling like I need more followers or I need more engagement or I need this because there's a desperation around it, people will feel that desperation and therefore they won't engage with your post. They won't want to follow you. So being able to have that energy of I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm going about my world. I'm happy. Like I'm enjoying this process. People will want to follow you for that. That is a very attractive quality in someone.
Yeah, be confident, believe in yourself. I think that in this case, we can talk a little about imposter syndrome because many people suffer from it. And it links perfectly to what you just said. You have to like who you are, you have to become the person that people want to follow. That's another thing we never remember. We think that if we just show up and if we are consistent enough on social media, eventually people will like our content. But it's not just that. You have to be the person that people want to follow. So you have to transform and shift yourself in the person that they want to follow and they want to relate to. So I wanted to talk a little about imposter syndrome because, as you said, maybe I'm not at the stage I want right now, but still I want to teach or I want to coach or I want to guide my audience through the journey I've been. And we end up thinking, I'm not ready, or I'm not interesting enough, as we said before, to the people who are following me, or I'm not experienced enough. I don't know enough to teach to my audience what to do. So I wanted to tackle that point and understand how can you change your mindset and move from imposter syndrome to be confident with who you are and be sure about who you are. Before I pass you this question, Jessica, I wanted to remind everyone if you want to sign up for the newsletter of the Escape 95 show, because we interview experts every week. If you've been following us, you know that we always have interesting people on board. You can see already on the screen the link to sign up for the newsletter, or I put the link in the chat as well. Just click on that link, sign up to the newsletter, and you will get an email reminder every time that we have a new interview here on this channel. So feel free to do that while we're talking. And again, put your questions. I can already see your questions, guys, so I will go through them. Put your questions in the chat, and then we're gonna pass these questions to Jessica. So back to my question: how can you shift your mindset from feeling like an imposter to believe in yourself and be the person that you just explained to us, Jessica?
I love this question. I love talking about imposter syndrome because I frankly don't even allow myself to believe that imposter syndrome exists anymore in my reality because obviously it does. Everybody feels it. I feel it. I feel it too. But the first thing I want to say here is we get what we can handle. We get what we can handle. If we don't think that we can handle money, visibility, fame, success, anything like that, if we don't feel like we can handle it, we won't get it. End of. And it's really brutal to hear, but it's true. So, what we want to be working on is how to handle that, how we can get to a position where we believe in ourselves that we can handle that and that we deserve that. And ultimately, that comes down to your subconscious because what's going on, right? We've got two sets of beliefs that we're working with here. You've got a conscious set of beliefs, like you might be reading somebody's post and thinking, oh, I wish I was them. That's a very conscious belief, right? You're believing that it would be great if you were that person. But your subconscious might be thinking something entirely different. And what tends to happen with, I do a lot of this subconscious work with my clients, because what's going on beneath the surface is that you've got this whole set of beliefs that's running on autopilot. And it's all come from when you were younger. It's all come from, when you're about like 0 to 7 years old. You learned things, you were conditioned by a set of rules in life, by your teachers, by your mentors, by your parents. And they are now running on autopilot, like you've learned to ride a bike, just running there behind the scenes. So if you have a subconscious belief, and let's take this back to building a brand and visibility. If you have a subconscious belief that you don't like being seen, that it is wrong to be seen, that it is that you're too much if you show up. If you have that subconscious belief running in the background, you will just keep repeating that pattern again and again and again. And what you'll find is your brand won't grow, because what's ticking on behind the scenes in your subconscious is, I don't like being seen. I hate this. This is wrong. But outwardly, consciously, you're thinking, no, I really want to grow my brand. I want more followers. I want these things. What we want to be doing to mitigate and get rid of imposter syndrome is looking at what is going on in your subconscious. And now that's not an easy thing to do. That's very easy for me to say. It's not an easy thing for us to just go off and do. It takes real work. And it also takes, well, number one, it takes taking responsibility for it in general. If you don't want to take responsibility for your subconscious mind, you will not grow. And it's so hard to hear, but it's true. And this is why when we jump straight to the strategy and we jump straight to, let's just hire this person to do it for me, you still won't grow. You won't grow at the speed that you want to grow at. Every single successful leader, every single leader with a very strong personal brand or a very strong business out there are working on these things behind the scenes, and they don't necessarily talk about it. So it's firstly taking responsibility for it, and then it's going off and it's getting the accountability around it. Whether that is diving into this work yourself and having a little look and being able to read up some books, listen to some podcasts. I've got a podcast as well, or whether it's talking to a friend about it and seeing whether you can dig a little bit deeper as to what you're thinking. But the main thing is, and I will say this, obviously being a coach myself, is hire a coach. It doesn't have to be me. It can be a coach that you relate to, respond to, but hire a coach. Just do it, because you're not going to get to that point. And the reason people don't like to hire coaches or are put off by it is because they think, oh, it's just all this, it sounds like a lot of work that doesn't really have a very strong ROI, right? But until you actually start doing the work and understanding more about it, that you're never going to know. You're never going to know the difference. And you'll just continue to look at these people, whether that's me and my brand on LinkedIn, or whether it's Stephen Bartlett and his massive personal brand he's built. You'll continue to look at these people and you'll continue to compare yourself to them until you start to do that work yourself. So that's kind of sums up the imposter syndrome thing. It's number one, understand that you get what you can handle. And number two, figure out what it is that you're subconsciously blocking, subconsciously thinking you can't handle, because that's going to change the game for you.
I love it. I love it. I hope that people are taking notes, because you're dropping so much good content and so great tips about mindset, about shifting your identity and become the person you're supposed to be to grow a brand and to grow a following. And all of this comes from your experience. All of this comes from your journey, all the mistakes that you've done, all the obstacles you overcame, all the good decisions that you took. And that comes to the advice that is the advice that you gave. Like, hire a coach, hire someone who is far ahead of you, who already walked that path, and that person can give you all the suggestion, all the tips. That person can hold you accountable and make you move from point A to point B, to the point B you want to reach. And this makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, we are not that reasonable when it's about hiring a coach and when it's about doing this kind of investment, because as you said, Jessica, we are afraid that the ROI is not good enough for what we're learning with a person. Actually, everything that you learn, if you think about it, everything that you learn, everything that is part of your skill set, there is part of your knowledge, is because you learn from somebody else. And everywhere you want to reach, you reach that place not on your own. It will never be on your own, but just because you had other people helping you and guiding you to reach that point. And if we start thinking in that way, we understand that even in business and even with visibility and brand, you need to learn from people who already done it. This is the easiest and fastest way to create visibility and to create a brand that becomes successful and profitable. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's always a good advice, but it's a really difficult advice to follow. I love that. And I wanted to tackle one of the questions that I got here in the comments, because we're talking about content a lot. So what kind of content, in your opinion, Jessica, what kind of content, or not in your opinion, in your experience on LinkedIn, what kind of content is working the best to grow your brand? If you have to think about everything you built in these 8 months, what kind of content would you use again and again and again because it helped you grow your brand faster?
Okay, well, if that is specifically the reason for fast growth in terms of followers, because there's two things you want to think about here. Number one, there's virality, so going viral and fast follower growth, and then the other one is credibility. So actually building up a brand with credible substance behind it that is going to attract your ideal ICP, is going to attract the people that you want in your community. And they're two different things. If you want fast follower growth, then you want to be posting things that are short, that are happy, that are, potentially mindset based, very much like go getter, happy content, right? This is by the way, this is like from my own brand and what I've researched from my own brand, but also from what I've researched from multiple other people's brands in the branding agency I worked at. But what I would say about that is, are you actually attracting the people that you want into your community? Yes, you might be going viral and getting all of these followers, but are they followers that, number one, actually want to engage? Are they followers that actually understand what you do and why you're doing it? These are very important things when we talk more about the strategy behind branding. Okay, because we've got the mindset piece that we've been talking about. Now, the strategy piece behind branding, if you don't lay that strategy down straight away and you just want the quick follower growth, you will trip yourself up further down the line. Because what you're going to find is you're going to grow a brand of people that don't care. Frankly, they just won't care about what you do. And you'll have all the followers and all the nice numbers, but you won't have any business or any money to show for it. So that's the first thing. If you do want quick follower growth, it is, those leadership style posts that are very much quite generic, to be honest with you. And a lot of people are actually getting sick of that style of content too, so it actually might not work in your favor. But my most viral posts, yes, there's always been a good hook and all of that, but my most viral posts have always been more on the feel good side of things. 5 tips for how to make your 2025 the best year yet, those kind of things, right? Whereas the other style of content, the credibility style of content, that's the style of content that you get to be putting out there and pushing through in the times when maybe they don't get as much engagement, maybe you don't get as many followers from that one post, but I can guarantee to every one bit of engagement, you've got 10 more people lurking behind the scenes watching that content go out. observing that content, observing you as a person and how professionally and credibly you show up, and they're waiting to reach out to you. And they're your leads. They're the people that you actually want in your audience, right? So it's a mindset game again, I suppose, by going, well, actually, this is the content I'm going to post because it's the most credible content that I have. And I'm going to push past it, the lack of engagement that I might have on this post. I'm going to push past that for now because as you build, you'll find that you're building a brand that is on a very solid foundation. So you want the mix of two. You want the mix of two. I sometimes post those very feel good posts on a weekend and I'll get a big followers growth. But I am strategically building my brand so that I have got people inside my community that buy into what I say and that want to work with me.
Yeah, it makes a big difference between people who are just following you, maybe because they saw a post, but they are not interested in what you say. And then there is the quality following. The people who are actually following you and they're paying attention to what you say and they're waiting for your content. And we fall into the trap that it's about numbers. We need to have big numbers because this what means to have a community, have a tribe. Actually, you don't have a tribe. You just have a lot of people following you, but they don't care about what you post. So yeah, the reason why I asked you this question is because sometimes, and it's linked with everything that we said so far. Sometimes we post because we know that something works. And we
Mm.
create this kind of content because we know that we will grow fast. But then, what kind of followers do you get? What kind of attention? What kind of visibility do you get? Is it the good kind? Or you just got a lot of followers that will forget you the moment after they look to another post? I think that that's something that you have to think about. In my opinion, it's way better to create quality content that serve your audience, your real audience, than having big numbers, but then an audience that is full of people that don't care about what you have to say. So it's more about quality. In case you want to have a community and your own tribe, it's more about quality, and it's more about thinking, what do my audience want to consume today? What kind of content should I provide them to make them wait for that content and to make them
Yeah.
fulfilled after they consume that content?
Yeah. And it really does go back to kind of your positioning and what you're wanting to achieve. Like if you are a community driven brand that's building a community of, let's say, female entrepreneurs because you've got a paid community in that sense, that's very different to if you're building a business where you're selling a product or a service that requires a very specific niche type of person to buy it or buy into it. So like it goes back to what your aim is. And that is one of the first questions that I ask my clients, is like, what legacy do you actually want to be leaving behind? Like, what do you want to be known for, um because like I've watched it happen firsthand. I've seen people show up and these really like friendly, lovely brands on LinkedIn, lovely, but I would never buy from them. Lovely, I'd love to have them as my friend, and I've made plenty of really great friends on LinkedIn. It's been amazing, but I don't want to buy their service, and it's no offense to that person. It's just that there's somebody else I'm looking at right now that is producing much more credible content that I trust more and I feel safer with. So I'm going to go with them over that really lovely person that's commenting really nice things on my post, or doing really nice joyful posts. You want to get the balance right. You want to be asking yourself, how do you want to be known? What legacy do you want to leave behind? And that's where your content creation comes from.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a question about habits as well, because that's another thing that I think it makes sense to talk about. What kind of habits did you embrace in your lifestyle to build your brand and grow your presence on social media?
Oh, that's a big question. Okay, certain habits. The first one would be doing the inner work, and that being a habitual process. Um, Now, that doesn't mean that every single day I'm diving into my subconscious beliefs because it's quite heavy. Um, but it does mean that I am carving out time in my week to sit and feel and think, okay, well, what, how have I been this week? Like, what have I been feeling this week? Where has this imposter syndrome come from? Like, being able to actually give yourself a moment habitually during the week to reassess and look at your life in that way. It's very, very important. It goes back to what I was saying before about giving yourself breaks, and I call them strategic breaks. So I guess you can say that's a habit as well, is taking habitual breaks. Very, very big one for me, because another chapter in my journey, I've had lots of ups and downs in my journey, and I've learned a lot, and I've owned multiple businesses, and I've done a lot of things. But like, there was a point in my journey a couple of years ago where I reached extreme burnout. So for me, actually taking those habitual breaks are very, very important to me on a very personal level, because I'm never going to let myself reach that point again. Um, and I call them strategic breaks because that's where, as I said before, the ideas land, the content comes in when you give yourself that time. So habitual breaks, habitual inner work, um, habitual. I mean, there's so many habits that I've. It's quite a hard question to answer, actually, because there's so many habits that I think I've built over the years of being an entrepreneur and an actor. Um, I guess, and this ties beautifully into really our conversation around visibility, but habitually showing up, making it a habit to show up in the right way, in like optimizing myself, my energy first, but habitually showing up, being proud of what I'm doing, and documenting that online. That is definitely a habit for me now. Like, I don't necessarily think about doing it now. It's just, it happens. It's just like, something happens in my life, I'll post about it. Um, and I think that's, again, comes more naturally to other people. I've spent 10 years doing this, so it has become a habit over that period of time. It's become a very ingrained habit. For some people, only just starting their personal brands, it won't be yet, but that's okay. So yeah, I'd say that's some of my habits.
Yeah, it's definitely a habit. It's difficult to stick with that routine and to make it part of your lifestyle. So it's definitely a strong and big habit to embrace. I agree with you, and it's really important if you're a content creator. You need to show up. You need to show up. You need to be sure that you are there, that you are serving your audience, that you're creating content, that you're visible. These are all things that we have to embrace in our lifestyle. So thank you very much for that,
Can
Jessica.
I add,
And
though, sorry to interrupt you, but and I'm making this is a habit, okay? This is another habit. You said something there. You said, as content creators or as business owners, we need to be showing up. We don't need to be doing anything, we get to be doing it. And this has become such a habit for me now, to a reframe in my language, that I get every single one of my clients and my friends to reframe. Because when, again, going back to that need and that desperation piece, when we feel like we need to do anything in life, we will overwhelm ourselves. Whereas if we can actually go, I don't need to do this, I don't really need to be showing up, do I need to be doing anything, I don't need to be making money. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, because obviously you're going to go, well, yeah, you do, because how are you going to live? But actually, when we can reframe it and say, I get to be doing these things, it makes it sound more fun, and it makes it sound more exciting. I get to be showing up. I get to do this. How cool that I get to do this. How free, like, look at that level of freedom that I have in order to do this. Like, it's great. Just that slight reframe can do wonders. So, if there's actually one thing that I want anybody to take away from this podcast episode today, it is that, like, you don't need to do anything in life, you get to do it.
I love the reframe. Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The words we use, I agree with that. It's a great reframe. Well, Jessica, I have so many other questions that I can ask, but for the sake of time, unfortunately, maybe we can do another episode and we can go through all the other questions that I have in my list. But regarding you and regarding the people who want to know a little more about you, where can they find you online?
Yeah, I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, as we've already said. So you can come and find me over there. You can drop me a DM. I'm always available in my DMs to have a chat with you. And if you do like the sound of any of the coaching side of things, I do have masterclasses and workshops coming out that you can definitely get involved with. I have a waiting list at the moment in terms of one-on-one clients, but if you would like to get involved with that, don't hesitate to get in touch. Just drop me a DM. And yeah, I'm just excited to chat to more of you guys there.
Amazing. And by the way, I will put all your links in the description of this episode. So if someone wants to find you easily on LinkedIn, they can just click on the link or check your stuff. They can easily do that. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being here. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure 100% that people took a lot of notes because you dropped so many gems during this conversation. And hopefully we're going to have another one and continue talking about mindset, visibility, and all the other great things. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.